Welcome back to the garage. In this video, we're going to be continuing work on the high mileage GX470. In this video, we'll be attacking some of the cosmetic issues present on the vehicle behind me. And the first thing on the list that I'm going to do is replace these completely missing fender apron liners. These are direct from Toyota. Very common issue for them to go missing. They go in these voids. And if you don't have them there, not only does road debris and all that start getting into the engine bay, it also allows rodents and anything else to kind of crawl in there more easily. Of course, those things will always find a way in, but this just helps prevent it. Anyway, really easy to install. Got some new extra clips just in case I break some of the ones pulling these off. Let's get to it. The first thing we'll be addressing is the intermittently working tachometer there in the instrument cluster. So in order to get the instrument cluster out, you do have to lower the wheel and extend it all the way towards you as much as possible. Now, to prevent running down the battery or prevent any shorting, I went ahead and disconnected the battery while the key was in the ignition, so when you take the key out, it tries to reset and push the wheel back in. You don't want that to happen. And then it looks like there's 4 Phillips head screws holding the cluster in. Now, to disconnect the wiring harness going to the back, you have to remove these little screws on top. They have a 15mm hex, or you might be able to loosen them by hand. When you're removing the circuit board, there's some resistance in this lower corner because there's pins that go into it right there that you just need to gently pry out. Okay, so this stepper motor right here is the tachometer one, and that's what we're going to be replacing. Alright, so here is the old stepper motor removed. You actually see it's got a little bit of, it's like some sort of leakage coming out. It's probably some grease that's inside of it that's kind of leaked out over the years. But for here, I have a brand new, just like it, replacement stepper motor, which we will get installed right now. Alright, so that is now soldered into place. It's looking good. Now it's time to just reassemble everything. Alright, now let's see if our fix worked. I'm going to hook up the battery, put the key back in, see if when I start it, the tachometer works. Yay! Tachometer is working like a charm. The next thing we've got here is the coolant reservoir cap. Some sort of animal got in here and chewed up this plastic cap, and what that means is when the engine heats up, all the coolant that was overflowing was coming out a hole here, not going into the reservoir. And when you turn the engine off and it cools down, it just tries to pull in fluid from this reservoir. Well, it wasn't doing that, it was just pulling in air. So that's actually a bigger problem than it first looks. The only way you're ever going to keep your cooling system topped up properly is if this is a sealed system. So it's a no-brainer to replace this. I have a new one from Toyota. As easy as that. Next, we're looking at the battery. When I bought the car, there was no strap holding this battery in place, and I don't know why, other than just whoever replaced the battery last just didn't have very much attention to detail. They didn't think it was important to put the strap back on. Well, you absolutely do need a strap, because otherwise it's just riding loose in here. If you were to have to slam on the brakes really hard or you hit a big bump, this thing could come out of its current spot. So you definitely want to have some sort of battery tie-down option. I got the original parts from Toyota Lexus. The forward clamp is a long one, the rearward clamp is a short one, and then we have this top clamp all held in with 2 nuts. Now the battery is properly secured. Next, we've got this window trim piece, and you can see how it's starting to come apart here on the driver door. The rest of them are in pretty good shape, but this one, it's coming apart to the point where if you don't fix it, it might drag on the window and start scratching it as it collects dirt and all that. So it's good to replace these. There's tons of aftermarket options out there, but I've only seen that they don't fit very well. So I've got an original Toyota one here. A single genuine Toyota one costs about as much as a set of 4 to do all the doors aftermarket, but you get what you pay for with these sort of cosmetic pieces, and if you can afford it, just go original. That looks so much better. Now I'm going to work on replacing the bottom seat covers of the driver and passenger front seats. You can see the driver one is very cracked, has some vinyl repair attempt here and just looks pretty crummy. The passenger side, it's not torn, but it just looks really worn, so we're going to go ahead and take that on. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I found a really good deal on some aftermarket leather seat covers. They were really inexpensive. I found them on sale for the pair for only like 60 bucks. I mean, it's basically a no-brainer to try it out. It may not be exactly perfect fit for that price, but it'll look better than the current state of the seats. Now, something to take on this job is you'll definitely need a set of hog rings and hog ring pliers. I had this left over from a prior project, the E30 project. So this should help me get through this job. First step is getting the seats out of the car. Even if you're not planning to take the seat covers off, it still might be worth taking the seats out of the car so you can get a view of the previous owner's mishaps and clean it up. Maybe the inside of your vehicle might smell better as well. Definitely gonna give this a good vacuum and carpet clean. here. One old cover removed. Now I will say the aftermarket covers don't have these plastic tabs that are sewed in to the original ones. They just kind of help keep the wiring harness out of the way, but I can tell you right now they're not absolutely critical, and I'm not going to go ahead and try and retrofit those. However, you will need to make this hole in the new covers, this hole, and this hole. Really easy to do. Also this hole. Really easy to do with an X-Acto knife. Okay, now it's time to transfer the seat heater element over. Okay, with the element properly distributed, centered on the seat, now we can hold it in place by just tacking it with some hot glue. That's all it needs, just to hold it fabric to fabric. Alright, with that done, now it's time to mount it back to the seat cushion with new hog rings. So the aftermarket seat cushions are a bit different than the original ones. The original ones use these steel bars to go across, and it allows you to really kind of just put the hog ring in the middle and it can self-center itself. These have fabric going the whole length of the bar, so you kind of have to just poke a hole sort of in the middle or where you want to put the hog ring, and then feed it through. right, that is all the hog rings installed. Just need to wrap the cover back around the cushion. Looks pretty nice. All right, let's get this mounted back to the seat frame. Alright, and since these are aftermarket seat covers, the clip along the front edge just doesn't fit well, doesn't actually hold. So I've just used some hog rings on the leather itself to loop around the seat frame. It's tight. This gets covered up by that plastic bezel anyways. I think that looks quite a bit better. The color isn't a perfect match. It looks like this seat has actually been dyed or sprayed with some sort of dye before, because you can see down here it's a different color than standard. You can see the dye or paint has chipped off. So this has clearly been repaired. Obviously when they put that vinyl repair, they painted it a different color. So this is probably closer to what it originally have been. Might be able to get a dye kit and bring it back to this original color in the future, but regardless, this is now good looking. No cracks. It'll tighten up as the sun hits it and heats it up. All right, let's get it back in the car. Alright, there we are. New seat covers in, and I gotta be honest, that has transformed this interior. It is now obvious how worn those seat bottoms were. For $60, I don't think there's one single improvement you can make to an interior that transforms it as much as that does. Wow, happy with that result for sure. Alright, so that is everything cosmetically that I intended to fix Sans one thing, the driver's window switch that doesn't seem to be able to roll up the passenger rear window. Tried swapping out another window switch, a used one, and it still didn't fix the problem. So potentially the used window switch I got is broken as well, but I don't know. So I might try another window switch. I might try some further diagnosis, but that is still unsolved. Otherwise, everything else is looking good now. Let's go take this for a quick spin just to see how it drives. Starts up so smoothly. It's kind of a wet and cold, crummy day, but it's actually a perfect kind of environment for this sort of vehicle. A vehicle that just allows you to go about your daily life without having to worry about anything. Who cares if there's water on the road, big potholes, whatever it might be. Just takes it in stride. Fitted with that big V8, it just makes effortless, buttery smooth power. Lots of low-end torque. Makes it just a pleasure to drive around town and stop and go traffic. Brakes are incredibly powerful as well for such a big vehicle. Gear changes happen almost unnoticed. Very smooth, and I'm sure that's only improved by the fresh transmission fluid that's circulating throughout. This does have a 5-speed automatic transmission, so it's geared really well. Accelerates great from a stop and on the highway. It doesn't have to downshift all the way down to second gear just to get you in a passing mode to go uphill. So I've received a lot of questions about whether or not someone should go through changing the transmission fluid on their high mileage GX470, because, you know, pretty typical. They don't have maintenance records for the vehicle. I don't know why they simply disappear, but that's just the case of basically every GX470 that's out there for sale. You're not going to get maintenance records that mean much of anything. And I say go for it. You're not pressure flushing the transmission. You're just letting the transmission cycle the old fluid out while you put new fluid in. And I mean, I did it 1,000 miles ago and it's no worse off for it. I mean, it's only running better than it used to. And now I have confidence in the fluid that's in it that it's going to last for a very long time to come. So if this is any example of what changing your transmission fluid is like, I say go for it. I don't think it's going to hurt you in the long run at all. Days like today, it makes you really appreciate the heated seats, which do work great. They're a variable heating element, so you've got like probably 6 or 7 positions or heat ranges on there. Very nice. It's a very quiet, comfortable ride, this. Absolutely no rattles or bangs or booms or anything like that. It just goes to show the build quality that was put into these things. They just stand up to time. As old as this is, as many miles as it has, honestly drives basically like new. In my opinion, it's definitely worth putting the money into one of these to ensure it just keeps going forever. It really will if you care for it. Not the only thing on the interior that really dates the whole vehicle is just this infotainment system. Now, I'm sure back when this was new, that was just cutting edge. It was just so cool to have a screen of that size in your vehicle. It has a GPS system. You control all your HVAC and everything through it. But honestly, it's kind of a detriment. I wish I just had manual HVAC controls, manual everything. I much prefer the feel of a knob and knowing exactly what position something is in, what your fan speed is, you know, whether you have AC on or not, without having to go into a menu system to figure that out. And it's funny, you'd think that this would have been a fad at the time and it would have gone away, but the truth of the matter is, and anyone who owns a new car knows this, that basically everything's gone to these infotainment systems where the entire electronic systems of the car, all the HVAC systems of the car, are controlled inside of these screens. And it just makes driving and using the car way harder than it needs to be. All in the name of technology and being able to do over-the-air updates. It makes sense from a manufacturer's standpoint because they can control all of the systems in the car through one unified module. But really, as a consumer, it makes the whole experience cheapened and kind of worse in a lot of ways. So that's probably the only part that brings down the interior of the vehicle, and honestly every vehicle from here on out is going to be plagued with that sort of thing as technology moves forward, as you know, you get fancier navigation systems or displays, more apps and all that, and suddenly your car can't be upgraded and you're kind of just stuck in this period of time when that was the height of technology, but you know, technology's moved on since then. And you know, cars 5 years older than this just don't have that problem. So that's a bit of a downside, but a fairly minor one when you consider the robustness of the mechanical side of this vehicle. It still makes it worth owning, in my opinion. All of the air suspension now works. Back in one of the first videos, we changed out the airbags, but that's really the only suspension item I changed out on this. And still no clunks. I guarantee you the previous owner didn't really change anything meaningful either. So, I mean, it just, 240,000 miles original suspension and really no reason to change any of it. The shocks are great. They're not leaking. They're not banging around. The brakes, though, I mean, the calipers are a common failure point on these and really any Toyota caliper that has the 4-piston design. They just seize pistons, and so that's just something that's kind of routine maintenance. You basically replace your calipers when you change the pads just to ensure they'll keep working. Brakes otherwise on these are kind of interesting. They don't use a vacuum operated brake booster. They're electronic, so you sometimes will hear buzzing from the dashboard area while you're using the brakes, and that's the electronic motor on the brake booster priming the system. And it's just a little different feel to the brakes. It gives it a very powerful feel, almost a digital feel to it. But yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's only bad when you have to replace it, because the expense of that is multiple thousands of dollars if you have to replace the whole unit. So that's one downside. Definitely something to keep an eye out for. If the brakes feel weird, it could be down to the master cylinder not really working right. So something you'll want to be careful of there. The new seat covers on the front seats make the seat so much more comfortable. It's so much softer now. Before it had that really stretched, weathered leather on it. Made the seat almost rock hard. Even though the cushions were still in good shape, it just had tightened or constricted the cushions, compressed the cushions so they didn't really absorb anything. And now these covers are so much more plush and loose, and allows the cushion to kind of expand and just be so much more comfortable. So definitely a worthwhile upgrade there. A cheap upgrade just takes maybe a day to fit, and not only do they feel great, they look great too. Also had a lot of questions about what's the gas mileage on this thing, and honestly I still can't answer that question. I haven't actually been tracking it in the past 1,000 miles. It's not so bad that I notice it, I guess. So I mean, I put 1,000 miles on here because I made a few trips that were a couple hundred miles each out on the highway, and you know, I'd say probably 18 miles per gallon range at 70-75 miles an hour. Fairly frugal for a vehicle this size from this time period, and it's definitely helped by, you know, the variable valve timing system that this has, and also the 5-speed automatic transmission. It helps get that top gear RPM a bit lower. Might see if I can find some chrome paint to fix this Lexus emblem. Aside from the screen, this is something that definitely makes the vehicle show its age. You can't replace that. It is part of the airbag. So painting it is about your only option this side of getting a completely new airbag. Gosh, it's so nice to have that V8. It just gets up and goes. And with it being full-time all-wheel drive, you know, in the wet like this, you can give it lots of gas and you're not going to lose traction. It's not going to spin up the tires. It's wonderful. I don't know, there's not much else to say about it other than it's just a great driving vehicle. Something you can definitely live with day to day. So there we are. That is the Lexus, all fixed up, restored, and ready to rock for the next 100,000 miles at least. Lots of good information in this series. There might be some more videos, but this is what I'm calling the end of this. My dad's gonna start using this and it's going right back into service. It's a good looking vehicle, that is for sure. Cleaned up really nicely. Very nice. I hope that was an enjoyable series. There will definitely be more like that to come. But until the next one, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all again next time.